We have a great show for you guys today. If you're just tuning in, I want to go ahead and welcome you guys to another episode of the Evolution Podcast. Today's a special episode because we're going to be discussing with British actress Anne. She's going to be talking about a lot of work she's done, and she has a very, very interesting background. But I don't want to take the credit for this. But Anne, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Anne Flosnik, and right now I'm an audiobook narrator, and I've narrated well over 600 titles now. I've been doing it a long time.
It's interesting. So 600 titles. Okay, that's very interesting. So how did you get started in, audiobook narration?
It was a long journey. By training, I was a nurse and a midwife. Trained as a nurse in Ireland, and I was a midwife came back to England. And then I became a flight attendant because I wanted to see more of the world, and I thought I could always come back to nursing or midwifery. And then I had a 2-year-old and a newborn, and I thought, well, this is just the way my life's going to be, and I feel there's something else. So I started reaching out to find out what that thing might be. And at the time I was listening to Anthony Robbins and reading all kinds of other inspirational writers. And Tony Robbins is the giant within, I think it was. I was listening to the tapes while I drove to work, and he talked about when the change of staying the same is greater than making a change. I thought, oh, and that's kind of stuck with me. And so I started to think, well, what might that change be? Because I'm being called to do something more. And I've always been a great reader. So I started off in the library, and I came across a book about home-based businesses. And home-based businesses in the 90s were just huge. And in that book, there was one of the ideas was to sell cosmetics, and it was a European line. So I did that, and in doing that, and everything I do, I try to make a success of. Everything I learned about marketing, I learned a lot in that time to make that work. And in the course of doing that and going around to people's homes and showing them the products and that kind of a thing, I met a hypnotist who had a show on a nearby local TV station. She invited me down to that to be one of her guests on one of these shows. And then I met actors and I got connected to the local acting community. And then I saw about all kinds of teachers I could study with, which I did. And I have really 3 full resumes of on-camera acting, commercials, local films, voiceovers. And I put a lot of my training, after doing the general kinds of training for the on-camera things, I put it into my voice because I felt that was, having an accent and having a good ear for doing other accents. And so I found a voice teacher that was recommended to me, and we just had a great relationship. He had great faith in me, and I learned a great deal from him. And then fairly soon, through that local acting organization, they had a hotline that you called on a phone. I mean, this is all pre-internet, pre the computer. It's a whole different world. But they had a hotline, and there was an advert for readers, studio narrators for the Library of Congress for their Reading for the Blind program. And so I asked my teacher, would he help me make an audition? Because it was very specific what the library wanted to hear. And we did that. We sent it in, and time went by, but they said, come on in and read what you read on your tape. And I did that. And that was in July of 1995. And then in 1996, in February, they called and said, we have a book. And that was the very beginning of my audiobook career in 1996.
Gotcha. Okay, there is a lot to definitely unpack there. It's definitely a lot as far as, so let's kind of walk back. So you said you were a flight attendant. What airline did you flight attendant for?
I flew with Laker Airways, which doesn't exist anymore. And mostly we did what I called day returns, which were, we would go to many European countries, or well, just one a day, kind of go to Greece, one of the islands, and refuel for an hour or two and let those passengers off, and then the other people, after we'd had something to eat, they came on, and we brought them back to England or wherever we were going. And then there were the long haul trips, which was where I got to come to America for the first time. And we flew to places like Santa Monica, Bangor in Maine, New York, LA, and oh gosh, that island, Barbados. We went to Barbados. Yeah, so I got to see quite a bit. And when we did those long haul flights, we would stay sometimes up to like 3 days. So it was quite good.
Interesting. So what was your experience like the first time you ever came to America?
It felt like a very familiar place because, you know, in England, I grew up on American TV programs. So you're just familiar with how things are. And Americans, by and large, tend to love English people, and it feels really
they love the accent. They love the accents. It's just you know, when you talk, when you have that English accent, it's like, oh my God, you are from, you know, not from here.
Right. But still, we're very familiar with the culture, like I said, just how things go, you know, how the crossing the streets, just simple things. You know how it goes, you know how people sound, you understand what they're saying, and it's just all very welcoming. And there's a wonderful spirit of can-do in America. It just feels wide open, and the sky is the limit, and you can be anything that you want to be here.
Interesting. So now, do you still reside? Do you still reside in England, or have you moved to the States?
I've lived in America since 1986. Long time.
Nice.
Longer than
Okay.
I lived in England.
Interesting. So which would you say is better? Would you say living in England was better, or just living in the States?
They're very different. They're very
How so?
different. And you would always say the place that you came from is home. It's kind of your soul. But having said that, I wouldn't go back. No matter what happened, my life is here in America. It's been
Really?
very good to me. Yeah, it's been very good to me.
Interesting. God, I love it. No, I love it. It's a very interesting, you know, because you have a lot of people in America that say, "Oh, I want to leave. I want to leave," and you have a lot of people coming here. It's like, "Oh no, I kind of do like it here." So let's talk a little bit about. So you know, you mentioned a little bit about being a flight attendant, and then right when you had that moment before you transitioned into you know, acting, because you did some acting a little bit, right? You had that. You said you were in it was Tony Robbins, right?
Yep.
Yeah, you were in the Tony Robbins event, and he said something about the change of, you know, staying the same is basically greater than change of actually making the change. What were you going through at that point in time that was like, you know what, it was so bad staying in this position as opposed to taking action?
Mm-hmm. Well, first of all, it was a tape. Look, I'd love to go to a Tony Robbins event, but I haven't ever been. It was listening to The Giant Within, a tape. And what he said, the thing of it wasn't that my life was bad. It was fine. But I felt there was just something more that before, like I said, I had a 2-year-old and I had a newborn. My 2 children are 2 days apart in years, 2 years and 2 days apart. And I just thought you know, my family is set now, my life is set, I'm very happy and I have a great job and I love that, but I just feel there's something more and I'm going to try and find that. And it was the worst time to be trying to find yourself, you know, when you have little children and those kinds of things. And I had a very supportive husband, but it was just a big internal draw to find out, you know, kind of claim more for my life.
Interesting. So it was a draw to claim more for your life. So now looking back where you are currently as opposed to where you were, would you say you made the right decision actually making a change?
Absolutely. Yes, because I can always go back. You know, there's always a cry for nurses and experience and love and compassion and caring and knowledge. But I've had a whole other life and several lives within that life, because within this acting life that I carved out for myself, I had a wonderful time, you know, doing all that and on-camera stuff and the general voice work, films, all these kinds of things. But the audiobooks just became my niche. And within that niche, that I didn't start off to make it a niche, but it just became a niche. That had a whole evolution, which is still evolving. Very much so, because remember when I started it, there was no internet, there were no computers, there was nothing like that. It was, you went into a studio and you were recorded. Well, in that time, and it started off with tapes, and then it was CDs, and now it's digital. These are all revolutions that I have had to learn how to move along with the times. And so we've gone from recording in studios only, being recorded by audio engineers, to having to take on that role ourselves and find out, how do you make a home studio? And then when you've got all the equipment, how do you work it? How do you then make files and send them off and do what all the different clients want? And they usually want some variation of something different, So it's that, even that isn't just one learning process. It's ongoing. And now there's AI is coming along on the scene, and everything just changes. That's the nature of life.
Interesting. So just talk a little bit. We'll talk a little bit about the back to it. But in what way are you guys currently implementing AI? Like, what way are you implementing in the audio narration space?
Not at all.
No, not at all.
Not at all. Well, that's not my job. I
Gotcha.
am a human audiobook narrator, and that is what I am, and that is what I advocate for.
So I have a question for you. In the topic of AI, does it concern you in any way, shape, or form? In the sense as to, for instance, I'll give an example: the Hollywood strike, right? You had actors basically saying, their likeness were being used by AI to basically, shoot the videos, and you had AI basically writing the videos, writing the script. Are you concerned because you have voice cloning capabilities right now,
Yes.
where they could clone a human-like voice?
They have, Emmanuel. They have. And it's not quite there, but, it's only a matter of time, really. So, of course, we're concerned.
Interesting.
That was part of what the strike was about. Not for voice actors, it was for on-camera actors. But it's there. It's in and it isn't just acting. So I'm not just going to be all Chicken Little about this. It's all of we could all be replaced by machines. So it's not just audiobook specific by any stretch of the imagination. And depending on how things are harnessed, it's always like fire. If you harness things correctly, there's a place for everything, but not taking over humans' jobs. No.
That's interesting. You say that's interesting. You say that in the sense as to we could all be replaced. But what's interesting, because in our company that we work with right now, it's unfortunate, but we have replaced a few individuals. I mean, we just came out with a technology now where we can we have AI sales reps. So we have AI which is kind of a little bit more of a very weird world to live in, where you basically, audition for a sales position, and they would be like, well, unfortunately, here, if you can beat this machine, then you have the job. But in a way, don't you think it takes a little bit of that authenticity? Because now you don't know what's human-like anymore. And, people they do want that human connection.
Yes. And they know it. I think they know the difference at this point. It's not that great. Well, whatever. I'm not an AI expert. This is just my opinion. I think right now that there is labeling to say, whatever language they say, that this isn't a human voice. I think that there is, an alert on the cover that, you shouldn't just be given an artificial voice and not know that that's what it is, unless that's what you choose. I'm not exactly sure. That's, like I say, I don't really know too much about AI. It's hard enough keeping up with just what I have to do in my job.
Yeah. Interesting. So just a little bit more into the, you get into audio narration. You've narrated 600 titles over now. Now, how? I'll give you a story. So back in 2020, 2021, I was writing a book. It was supposed to be based because, people tell you, your life was so interesting. You need to come up with a book about this, because I actually think people, would watch you. Mm-hmm. So, I was like, I wrote the book. It was 173 pages. I had an editor, we were going to go through the whole, shebang. But before I gave it to the editor, I was like, let me go reread this. And because I wanted to come up with, I had to do the, narrated by the author kind of deal for Audible.
Yep.
And while I was reading it, I was like, this is trash. So I just read it. I was like, this is trash. And I just told everybody, I was like, we'll cut it, we're scrapping it. And then they're like, are you going to come up with another revision? And I'm like, I don't think any of my, it was a weird structure. So then I was like, all right, I'm going to take some time, get some more life experiences again, and then I'm going to rewrite the book. And my girlfriend's been a very big advocate. She's like, you need to come up with this book. You need to come up with this book. But I have a two-part question there for you. So the first question is, how do you manage to be able to sit through, narrating a book? That's the first question. And then my second question is, do you ever narrate a title and then just go, this is trash?
Well, like any job, you put your heart and your soul in it, and this is somebody else's baby, and it's also your baby because it's now part of my family. So I treat everything with love and respect. And, some babies are more beautiful than others, but every baby's beautiful. To look at it that way. They're all somebody's baby, and then they become my baby because they've got my name on it.
Interesting. So in a way, let's say you have a book that's not necessarily an interesting read. Let's say you have someone's like, hey, Anne, really love your accent. And, I've listened to some of your other narrations, and I think it will be absolutely phenomenal. Can you narrate this book? It's about math, right? It's a math book. And can you make it? Because math is not necessarily the most attractive. You don't pick up a math book and go, oh my God, I'm going to lay in bed and I'm going to finish this entire book, right? It's literally you stare at it, and the next thing you know, like 3 hours later, you're like, what's going on? And you wake up, you're like, wait, I fell asleep. So do you ever see a book that's so boring that you almost have to put a lot more effort in to basically take it from being, this much to basically take to a position where it's basically this much?
Yes, I know exactly what you mean. And I have read many such books. I've read books about chemistry, which I really know nothing about, and many, many subjects I know absolutely nothing about. And really what we are is a conduit for the author's words. And somebody like, when you wrote your book, no matter how anybody else would judge it, you put your heart into that. And that's what I'm looking for. Even if it's a dry subject, somebody is the author that wrote this book is fired up about. They live their life because of math or chemistry or whatever the thing that I might think is dry or I don't understand. So I just try to channel the author's voice and bring that through me and be excited about it and just kind of mirror their tone. So whenever anything is being written, there are usually all kinds of highs and lows, and you look for that. You look for the soul of the book, or what's the tone of this paragraph, and what is this author saying, and what's he fired up about, and how can I amplify that message? Because that's what it is.
Interesting. So it's an application. What's the most interesting subject matter, more or less? What's the most interesting area in which you like? What, I read this book, I absolutely loved it. This was great. You even looked, you told the author, and it was like, hey, this is a great read, and this is it was an honor to narrate this book. Have you had something to that regard?
Many of them, and I'd hate to single them out. There are many.
What's your style of book to read, basically?
I like things that are complicated, that there are layers to them. And, we kind of maybe start off the book and we're interested to find out what is this person or what is this scenario about. And it just kind of starts unpeeling back like layers of an onion. That's the kind of thing I really love. And to show, kind of all the colors of human experience through what the author has written and through what I can do with my life experience, feeling it, just being there, kind of being minute to minute, really in, those circumstances that are being created through those words, and bringing life through sound to that. So
okay, and this is a very interesting question. So from which would you say? You were a nurse, you were a midwife, you were a flight attendant, and you narrate, you're an audiobook narrator now. Which would you say has been the most interesting of your careers?
They've all been interesting in their own way. And hopefully I could go back to pretty much any of them tomorrow. Because I think I've been very purposeful throughout my life. I'm very slow. I don't jump into things. I'll think about things. And when I'm thinking about things, it could be years. I started off being very shy, and that's kind of all part of my nature. But it's to fight that, because what's the point in being shy? Then you just shut yourself down and out of life. And it's been kind of fighting against my natural nature, which is it natural, or is that something that just kind of came in somewhere, in my childhood years? I don't know. I don't know. Life to me is all about just kind of unlearning everything that you learned to get back to really who you are sent here as. I think I've gone off your question now.
But who do you believe you, just to enter, who do you believe you were sent here as?
A love, I suppose, goodness, a force for good.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
So let's ponder, because this is where it's kind of a little interesting. So, do you believe all humans are capable of good?
Yes, I do. But having said that, I do believe that evil exists, because I don't think you can have one without the other. That seems to me the way that life is set up. Everything is multifaceted.
You made a very key point, which is, it's multifaceted. Evil. I believe evil must exist for good to shine, right? For instance, if there is no dark, then you will now value the light, right? Because I was having a conversation. This was a couple years back, and the individual in question was like, "Yeah, you know what? One of the most useless seasons that we have is winter. Why do we have winter? We should not have winter. Winter should not exist. It's a very useless season. Why does it rain? It should just be sunshine." And I thought to myself, and I said, And I asked this question. I said, imagine if every single time you walked out, it was all bright. You were like, yeah, that'd be awesome. It'd be spring. I'm like, but imagine year after year, all the sun was shining. It never went dark. And he's like, and then he started thinking about it. I'm like, go to Alaska right now. Cause I think it's Alaska. I can't remember where it is, but it's Alaska. It's somewhere where the sun is out for 3 months out of the year. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
Yeah. Right. And I was like, if you go there, imagine, Alaska, for instance, has one of the highest suicide. I wouldn't say the highest, but it's basically per capita, depression rates, because people aren't exposed to the seasons. It's almost like you need the bad to value the good. What they say is you don't know what you have until you've lost it.
Right. But that isn't bad. The things that you've mentioned, Emmanuel, to me are not bad, because with the example of the sun shining, the sun not shining, it being winter, it being summer, just because we don't see things happening in winter doesn't mean there aren't things going on. There's a cycle. And, so the winter time is just as valuable to the whole cycle and circle of life as the part that we can see when we see the fruits of what's been happening underground, that then, the shoots spring up. There's a cycle to it. You can't just be all stuck in the one sector.
Got you. And then this just brings me to my question, because you brought up something which is very interesting. You said you saw a hypnotist. I want to say, you saw it.
No, I met a hypnotist. She was one of the people that I met at one of the skincare party things that I was doing, because that was my little job, my extra job at that point. So it was meeting her, and she was a speaker on a show down at a local access TV station in Fairfax, Virginia. And she was on a show there, and she said, come on down and audition for something or another. And I did. And that was my first audition, and I got it. And it was it was a local TV access show called Eye on Beauty. And I was to be a reporter, going off to various salons and things and just inquiring about their treatments or whatever I was told to do, and then present that information on this local access TV station. And then I met other actors that were part of that program. And then I learned, so this is what you have to do. You have to get a headshot and a resume, and you need to get coaching, of course. And who are the coaches that are thought to be good for which different things? That's a whole thing. Because remember, there was no social media, there was no internet to find out these things then. So I learned a lot from the people that I met. That was the start of it. And then that led on to all kinds of other acting opportunities.
Fascinating. That's interesting that you said. Now, the question I had, which was very interesting, is, do you believe in hypnotism?
I do, actually, yes.
You think so right now, in what way do you think it would be applicable to, an individual for the most part?
Maybe it depends if you have a suggestible nature, which I do, and maybe an open nature, that you're open to the idea that that's possible. And I have been let's just say I have sat through hypnotherapy sessions. I don't know whether I've been hypnotized or not, but I do think that we can the mind is a very vast and not totally known quantity. And, heaven is bigger than whatever. But just that there's more than we know. And so that's not hurting anybody. So I have been hypnotized, but like I said, I honestly don't know whether I was hypnotized because I was fully conscious throughout the whole thing. But who knows what that did within my mind? Might have opened it up a bit.
Interesting. So interesting you brought that up, because I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, if it's in a situation where you are hypnotized, then the part that I'm thinking is, I don't think you would know, because then again it would be more of a thing where it's like, oh yeah, this happened, and you just wake up and you just don't know it happened. I don't know.
Right.
But the reason why I asked that question is because I believe that we hypnotize ourselves each day by the thoughts that we tell ourselves.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Do you believe in manifestation?
I do. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Now, so you basically believe in the power of the mind. So I'll give you a scenario. So fairly recently, I was talking about a car. Not necessarily, I don't need it. I love the one I have. But I was, discussing with my girlfriend. I was like, you know what? I want to get this car. I want to get this car. What was interesting was the car, when it was advertised to me, was a rarity of its kind. Right? I was like, okay. And kid you not, guess what I started seeing every day? That same car. I saw it at the parking lot 4 times. I saw it when I was driving. I saw different colors of it. I saw different variations of it. And I'm like, yeah, this is not as rare as they told me it was going to be. But what was interesting about it was, prior to me inquiring about the car, I had never seen that car before.
Wow.
Right? But what's interesting? There's a part of the brain called the RAS, the reticular activating system. Right? The RAS is basically the best way to position it is more of like a light. It's like a flashlight, right? So when you tell your mind, when you focus on something, you shine more of a flashlight on it. So think about it like a filter. So let's say right now you're not thinking about money, right? Let's say right now you're just thinking about your day-to-day life. You're thinking about basically your day-to-day activities, whatever it is. And all of a sudden you go, I want better for myself. I want to be a better individual. I want to make more money. You start to tell yourself that long enough, eventually you start having opportunities come up, right? Same thing. Like you think about a red car long enough, you start to see more red cars, right? So it's a very weird thing in a sense. The reason why I bring it up is because most people expose their mind to too much negativity that even though positivity was right in front of them, they never see it.
Right. But that's not our fault, Emmanuel. That's the way that we are wired for survival. We kind of come from a place of fear, because that's what kept our ancestors, our prehistoric ancestors, safe, was being afraid, and all this fear, fight, flight. That is, so we are programmed to find the negative. That is the way we are set up to save up, because it's all about, existing so that we can reproduce. That's really, from Mother Nature's point of view, as far as I can tell, that's why we're here. But the fact that we've evolved and we have brains that can think and want more for ourselves, we have to actively, and it depends, I suppose. Some people are more wired towards the negative than other folk, but I think that's an innate thing for our survival that's built into all of us. And so it just behooves us to, if we want to change that natural mindset, to start looking for the positive, and then the positive appears.
Interesting. So it's so you basically what you're saying is more in the sense as to most people still operating off of the primitive old ancient way of survival, way of thinking for the most part. But then again, I wouldn't still see that as an excuse though, in a sense. The way I want to think about it is you listen to a tape, and that tape made you realize that you needed to make, the key word there is you needed to make a decision to put yourself in a better situation, because the change you basically, it was more painful to stay in the same situation than it was to actually take the pain to go, take the risk to basically, make you, give yourself a better life for the most part. And I'm thinking about it from that perspective as to, there's a lot of people that rationalize, in a sense, to not there's a lot of people that would listen to that and say, you know what? It's the primitive brain is the reason why I'm so negative, right? It's the reason why I'm so negative. But then again, don't you think, in a sense, as to overcoming that negative mindset it's a conscious decision?
Yes. And you have to be ready. And the fact that I had sought out Tony Robbins's tape and all these other books and things, I was ready. That, I think, is the key point of it all. I was ready. So it's kind of when the pupil is ready, the teacher will appear. I was seeking. And that's kind of been a big thing in my life. And I still do. I continue to seek, because the end, there is no end until, the final curtain.
So you had to,
and that makes life fun. I don't want to be, ripe and rotten. I want to be green and growing.
I love that. I love that. That's a saying. I'm going to use that. I love that. So, which is interesting, because you brought up something, and one of the reasons why we we're like, hey, she's going to be a great guest to be on the pod. My producer, actually, so I'm going to give you guys a very, very big tip. If you want to be successful, you have to understand that you have to actually take the active, this is to the audience. You actually have to take the initiative to actually take steps, right? And I'll give you guys one of the things we do. One of the systems we have in place is we implement artificial intelligence in about 85 to 90% of our operating procedures. So just about everything from, nurturing, the service we fulfill, to the editing of the podcast, to a lot of things we implement. We pretty much implement a lot of AI softwares. Now, the reason why I bring that up is I made the decision, talking about decision, a few months back. And I said, you know what? I want to get my last name out there. I want to be known. So I was like, okay. So we met with my team. We're like, all right, let's kind of create a strategy here. And we came up with a very, very concrete outreach program for basically getting guests on a podcast, right? So basically, we have which is very interesting. We have an AI tool that will basically go and search and see who's a fit for our podcast. And then it will let, a producer picks and says, oh, you know what, this person great, goes ahead, does the research on our guest. That's how we found you, does the research on our guest, finds you, research your website, research your LinkedIn, gives outline for how we should structure the podcast. And then we proceed to basically, start doing the outreach. And surprisingly, we've gotten a lot of traction, especially Spotify, YouTube. I mean, it's insane. And the reason why I'm bringing that up is I think a lot of people just are not willing to do what it takes to actually get the results that they want. Would you agree?
They have to be ready, Emmanuel. It just comes with a desire. Something's not working here in my life. That whole thing about being in some kind of a pain. Pain is a wrong word, but it's having some strong emotion, and in a sense that things are not right. Things could be better. And then you start searching.
So would you say
it has to start with that.
So, okay. So, and I 100% do agree with you, but would you say that there's a degree of luck that is required per se, or that's like the secret sauce to making everything work?
No, I don't.
No.
I don't. No, because I think luck is, and none of these are my words, things I've read, and I'm probably misquoting them, but isn't luck supposed to be when kind of all the work that you've done meets opportunity?
Preparation meets
opportunity. Exactly. So that to me is luck. You kind of make your own luck by putting yourself out there, because how can you be lucky if you're just sitting in your house thinking, oh, whoa, have this terrible life, or nothing's going to happen. Nothing comes of nothing. Good old Shakespeare.
Yes, and I think to a point, yes, I will agree with you in a sense too. Preparation is important, but you got to think of, this is how I think about it. There are people who have, done and probably even worked 5 times or been in the space 10 times more than, 10 times longer than you have, but have not even achieved the level of success that you have. Right?
Might have given up, Emmanuel, too. It isn't easy. It seems on the surface like it would be easy, but to really have an appreciation for what goes into this, it's a lifestyle. It's not a job, because for every hour of audio that somebody is listening to, that anybody has produced, there are hours and hours of other things that have gone on. You know, the book has to be read all the way through the first time. All kinds of notes are made. If it's a fiction book, about what all these characters are, where did they come from, what age are they, do they have some kind of a physical deformity, all these things. Words, not just to say to yourself, oh, well, I've always pronounced it so and so. Just, verify and make big lists, do all this pronunciation research. So then you're generating lists. And then as we're going along, it's a good idea to do this punch and roll kind of editing, so that you're trying to, the aim is that you're making 100% correct product when you send it in to your client. And then the editing process goes on. So, and I think that's even more labor intensive than the narration part. And a good narrator is probably spending 2 hours of sitting in the chair to get 1 hour of audio. So you see, we've got hours and hours and hours just to get one seamless hour, of a finished product. So one of my good colleagues, Sean Pratt, has always said, if you think this sounds interesting to you, just assign yourself that you're going to go for a week. You're going to sit sit somewhere very quiet for an hour, at least an hour every day, or 5 days a week for a week, and see how you feel. See, are you temperamentally suited to this? Because you have to be temperamentally suited to sit and focus. And the brain work that's going on, it's almost like playing tennis with yourself when you're doing all these different characters. Now I'm a man saying this, and now, I'm his, female friend, but it going on in different ages, and sickness and in health within the characters, and whatever is coming up. It is exhausting.
So, but which is, and I 100% do get your point there, and I think yes, to your there is 100% credit, because for the fact that a lot of people don't see, because let's even go back to the being a flight attendant. There's a lot of preparation that goes into working one flight, right?
Yes.
Before the boarding starts, you're getting everything ready. The flight deck is pretty much getting everything ready. Before you even get in the plane, you're pretty much already, seeing how many passengers you have on board, seeing, do you have any specials? Do you have anything that's kind of like, that's going to be basically out of the normal, right? And then you get on the flight, and then there's a lot of stuff that's going on in the flight, and there's a lot of stuff that goes on outside the flight. So a lot of people go in, they sit in a plane, and then they complain about, oh, well, the leg room, I didn't get the leg room. Oh my God, yes. The service, oh, you guys, she didn't, the flight attendant did not smile at me, oh my God, I'll leave a bad review on Twitter, So there's a lot that goes into it, but people don't see it, right? So, but then again, you also made a very, very interesting point, and you said it's a lifestyle. It's not work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right. And I want to ask you a question, because this is interesting to me. If you were paid the same amount of money that you were paid right now to narrate all the books, the exact income you were paid, and you were paid, but the stipulation says you cannot narrate any audiobook. You have to go lay on a beach in Cancun for the next 5 years, no work at all. Would you take it?
No, I wouldn't, because that's soul destroying. That sounds like a hell.
What's interesting, and the reason why I asked that question is this. Your answer, if you want to just expand a little bit, why you gave that answer.
Because I need to work. I'm almost somebody who works to live rather than lives. Oh, the other way around. I live to work. That's part of my soul. I need to give. I need to create. And ideally, there's some element of helping people within that. And I know within, lockdown, when everybody was locked down, audiobooks really went up, the consumption, and the fact that now they're on a smartphone. Whereas, when I started, it was tapes. You went to a library pretty much, or you paid for them. It was big bulky packages coming through the mail, and then it was CDs. Well, now it's in your pocket. And there are even wonderful free resources through your library card, things like Libby and Hoopla, that you plug into those, and you can listen to all kinds of audiobooks. And you don't have to return them either, because after 3 weeks or whatever you set it at in your app, they go away. It's marvelous.
That's an interesting. Now, which is interesting, and also which is interesting, just back to your answer there, where you say you live to work. And I think a lot of people, if they were given the same option, saying you will get paid the same amount of money right now that you make. Let's say you make 5,000, let's make you make 6,000. Let's say the average income in America is what, 32, 36,000. You get paid your annual salary every single year for 5 years, but you have to not do any work, lay on a beach, relax, and do nothing. 85% of the population is going to say, sign me up. They're going to be like, wait. You telling me I get paid the same for zero work? But it also kind of, which is interesting you said that, because I think there's also a personality to it. Because, I wake up, like, I like to wake up very early in the morning because you can get a lot done in the morning,
Yeah.
But if my day has maybe 2 to 3 hours of free time in it, it's like the world is coming to an end.
Yes, I know.
It's like it's like what's going on? Like, where it's scheduled. Okay, I need to book some, but it's a weird thing because it's like you're drawn to it. It's not work anymore. It's the creativity. Even after you get paid, you're like, well, let's go find another project. Let's work with this client. Let's do this. Let's do that. But it says a lot, and I think not even the degree of luck, but I think the universe rewards people who go to it, who don't see it, because it's not stressed. Like, you could work a 12-hour day and not be stressed.
Mm-hmm.
So that was just my to my degree, and I just kind of wanted. That's the reason why I wanted to basically ask that question, to kind of get your take on it.
That's the kind of person I am, and I think that's a lot of the kinds of people that stay in audiobooks. I mean, a lot of people may begin it, but it takes its toll. It just does. I mean, physically, it's hard. You have to be very disciplined, because the whole thing, really, this job is built on trust. You are entrusted. You're told this is the title, and this is what the book's about. This is the deadline that it has to. We want this book, the finished files, by such and such a date, and that's pretty much it. And how you get then to deliver that within the time frame, you are it. Because once upon a time, we'd be in a studio, we'd have a director, we'd have an audio engineer. So that was 2 sets of ears were on everything that you said. Now it's just me. And so I am driving the train. And, it's possible that you could have the wrong end of this particular stick of the book. It's a huge thing of trust, and the people that remain in it just find a way to work within it. It suits their temperament. The flexibility is fabulous. I mean, it is that, you can say, this is where the deadline is this, but how I get there that's all up to me. And so you could, some people have to do it all at night because they're doing it while they're doing other jobs. I take my hat off to them, because that's really something. But we all have to start where we start from.
Interesting. No, I do believe. Now, as we wrap up here, we've got a series of fun questions that we ask for the most part. So, do you have an American accent?
It's very bad.
But
my southern one isn't too bad.
I love it. I love it. That is a pretty good. That's a pretty good. That's how we talk around here. But so.
Well, thank you.
I love it. So have you ever accidentally narrated your grocery list in the book?
I honestly haven't.
Instead of a book.
I honestly haven't. No. Because I'm focused on what I'm doing. And if I get to that kind of a zoning out space, I've got to get up and, get a cup of tea, walk around, change my horizon, and then get back in and be fully present.
Love it. So now, do you ever forget that you're in character when interacting with other people? Like, like you stay in character. For instance, you use your southern accent and then you're talking to someone from the family and you're like, excuse me? Yeah.
No, that never happens, because to me, turning it on, all the different ones is just automatic. It's like playing in a sandbox. It's playing. It's not something. I'm not that kind of a method actor, whereby, if I was playing Abraham Lincoln or something, I've got to be Abraham Lincoln from when I get up in my own life to when I go on set. No, I turn on and off the different things. I just kind of go there, boop, boop, in, out, in, out, in, out. And I'm not saying it's a rare thing, but it is something I have, and it's very handy for audiobooks because you just switch from A to B. Now, sometimes I shouldn't make it sound as easy as that, because say it depends which accents. If you're having to do several accents together, they can get a bit muddled. So kind of doing Scottish and Irish for me can tend to get a little bit muddled. So I might have to kind of take more breaks so that I'm coming back and I'm definitely Irish now, and now I'm Scottish and then I'm Irish, and rather than getting them all mixed up. If that makes sense.
I love it. So obviously, as we're wrapping up here, any last words for the audience? Anywhere you want them to go? Do you have a book that's coming out?
Oh gosh, I have a lot of books coming out, but the one I most recently did was about Frances Hodgson Burnett. It was a memoir. She's the author of The Secret Garden, and she had a really interesting life.
She's what's her name again? What's the author's name?
Frances Hodgson Burnett.
The Secret Garden. I have.
Oh, not a memoir. It was a biography. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, that's an interesting. So, can you share a little bit what it's about? Just a little bit more snippets.
Well, it's just really about her life and how prolific she was, and she was really all about loving, and she genuinely loved children. Fascinating life in that she was born in England, but then she went to America at about 16, and parents were very poor at that point. And in order to write her first books, because she felt that was her calling, she was writing from a very, very young age. And at 16, I think she sent something in and it was returned. And then, she didn't know, well, first of all, she didn't know how she was going to pay for the paper and the stamps, because you had to, write these manuscripts and send them through the mail. And so she and her sister sold wild grapes or something like that in order to get the money to, pay for the ink and the paper and the stamps. And that's kind of exactly, she's my kind of gal. She really is. I can identify with that you have such a drive within you that you just have to find a way to make it happen. And there's no luck in that. With that wonderful talent, she had to go out and find how to get money to make that happen. There's no luck there. It was persistence. And then I think when she sent that first manuscript in, they couldn't believe that a 16-year-old had written this. And so they told her she had to write more, so that we can be sure that you really have this talent. Then she had to get more money, and on it goes.
Wow. No, I love it. So guys, we're going to be putting the link to connect with Anne. If you have an audiobook that's coming out, if you really enjoyed and you just wanted to give her a shout out, the description is going to be in the link. If you're watching us on YouTube, just check the description. If you are listening to us on Spotify or you're watching on Spotify, I believe it's on the description as well. So definitely, Anne, it was an absolute pleasure having you on. This was exciting. This was an exciting take. And I think when my book comes out, love to, have you narrate it.
Oh, no. It has to be in your voice, because my goodness, you've got a wonderful voice. It's your story, but I will help you. I will tell you how you go about it, to get it all over the place. And then you're going to be an audiobook superstar.
I love it. No, I love it. No, yes, I love it. Thanks for the compliment, guys. So, but then again, guys, thanks again for everyone being on here. So please hit the like, subscribe, and definitely go say hi to Anne. And it was a pleasure having everyone on. And